Okay, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Laura Lee Potvin. I'm from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, and I am a psychic medium. I'm a medical intuitive. I'm a newly graduated Crystal Reiki master, as well as an empath and spiritual teacher. And welcome to our Wednesday night angel party. How I usually do this for anybody that's new, and if you are, welcome, is I work primarily with angels. I work with all different levels of spirit, but that's why it's called our angel party. And for those of you that have been joining me for the last couple of weeks, we've been doing something called sort of tools you can add to your spiritual toolbox. What we've dealt with, I'm trying to think now, we've gone back. If you're able to go back, it's usually about the first 15-20 minutes of each. We're here for an hour and a half, where we went through a grounding and gridding technique I shared with you. I've also shared how to, I want to word this properly, I call it your shield of love. So say you're an empath and you're out and you tend to absorb other people's energy. It's a tool you can use to know what's your energy, what someone else's, and keep out any other energy unless it's meant to be for in a place of love or your highest good. Also, I was very grateful last Saturday. Maria Rodriguez, who usually goes up on Saturdays, was out of town. So in that class, I taught how to create your own special meditation spot that you can go to. A lot of people find it very difficult to create or even go into meditation, stopping their thoughts. So I worked with you guys about how to create a special place, just your own, where you can get to it very quickly. And you almost look forward to meditation because it's something you created on your own and you can add to it. Tonight, what I decided working with spirit is you see a lot of people when you come to these readings doing things with cards. They can be called angel cards, oracle cards, tarot cards. And basically what they are is just a tool to help you interpret how to further, say you're not sure about your clairaudience, about hearing a message from spirit. It's a great way to start. It's a great way to get evidential proof of something you may be feeling, hearing, tasting, smelling when somebody's got a question for you and you're working with spirit to give them some guidance. And cards are a great way to help you figure some of these messages out. So let me finish. We got a few extra people. I just want to say hi, and we're going to jump right into that. What I'm going to show you tonight is how to set your space, and as well how to start with just a one card reading and what you can use that for as well. There's many different things, including just for yourself as well. So let me see who we've got. I'm fine now. Like I said, we had a little bit of excitement outside at this time of night. But it settled down. That's why I was a few minutes late. And then for those of you who are joining a few minutes, I popped up in my place I used to go live in the Lab Light Room. So thank you, Chris Hoffman. Hi, Kelsey. Nice to see you again, too. Hi, Adele. Good day. Hi, Logan. Hi, Loretta. We've got Anshul. Thank you for coming. I don't think I've seen you here before. There's a few new faces, so thank you for joining me. Hi, Carla. Sheila. Katie. We got a couple of Chris's here, so it's going to be fun trying to keep our Chris's straight. Hi, Sheila. Hi, Katie. You ordered your first deck last week, Jody. Uh-oh, you're going to turn into a junkie like me before you know it. I call myself a card and crystal junkie because I adore them. And I think I'm up to, as I always say, every time I start going through my cards and doing readings, is I call myself a card junkie because I think I'm at about 70 different decks. Oh, I think I have a problem. No, it's not that. You know what it is that I just love them. And by the time we're done and I'm teaching, let me start again. By the time I've taught you how to do a one card reading tonight, I'm hoping that you'll love them just as much as I do and many other people who use them. So I'm just going to pick a deck. And before I do, excuse me, so I'll grab one. We'll grab one of my fancier ones. You don't need to grab a fancy one, but this is one of my favorites. People say to me, well, where do you get cards? How do you know what cards to get? Believe it or not, there's some people that aren't so crazy when they hear the word tarot cards. all they are is a tool. That's all they are. It's the intention that you use with it. It's how you set it up. And if you're coming from a place of your highest good or somebody else's, and you're coming from a place of complete love, that's all they are. Excuse me. There are differences amongst decks. There's different authors. The way I usually pick my decks, I have bought a few online, but usually you can go to a metaphysical shop if you have one in your city or town. If you don't, another great place to buy them I have found is in Canada, our Canadian version of Barnes & Noble. If you're in the US, feel free for anybody, I know there's someone from Australia, I think it's Adele, or anywhere else, what the names of your bookstores are, but they have in their metaphysical sections or spirituality sections, a lot of them carry these type of cards by different authors and so on and so forth. So how do you pick your deck? So it depends where you're coming from, because some of the decks are a little bit darker. They're meant for people that choose to work. Not everybody chooses to work in the light. There's no judgment there. So when you pick up a deck, and like I said, I have my fancy one here, but I'm just going to grab, this is one actually that I'm just learning to use, and I was drawn to it, and I'll tell you why. Hopefully this will help you. This is called Angel Hearts and Sigils, and it's called Mystical Symbols from the Angels of Atlantis. So the first thing that drew me to it was the color. I thought, I haven't seen a deck this color before. And the side was out, and I seen something about angels, something about sigils and symbols, and I'm really, really excited about that. So I pulled it out. When you turn over the deck in the back, most of them will have plastic on them, so you can't open them. So you've got to use your intuition as well as how you feel about the deck. I looked at the back. I kind of liked the pictures. They were okay. I wasn't super sold on the pictures. But as I started to read about the back, it was talking about experiencing the heart and love of the angels of Atlantis, the magic of old. Then it talked about 12 beautiful angelic orbs that offer 44 aspects. It talked about illumination and so on and so forth. That's what drew me in. And then I kind of meditated very quickly in this door. I didn't get into the lotus position. I just held it in my hand and took a couple deep breaths and tried to clear my mind and connect with my guides or spirit and ask them, what are your thoughts? I'm really being drawn to this. So I took it home, and I'm really glad. So that's how I pick my decks. From what I understand with other people that I've spoken to, that's usually how they choose their decks. There are varying price ranges depending who makes them and how many cards are involved, who the author is. And I also draw other things that are really unique that I haven't seen before. For example, I'll show you a few. This one, and the reason why I have so many Doreen Virtue decks is I have been at this for about 12 years and really active with my spirituality practice, probably for the last 2 years since I found the Lightworkers Lab. But before that, I was kind of on my own. And Doreen Virtue was one of the first people I found who made these type of cards. So and that was pretty well all that was available. And I actually am a certified angel card reader with her. And she also had a course on, she's got angel tarot cards as well. So I'm certified with her with that, but you don't need a certification. It was just, I had no clue how to do this. And I usually tell this story if I'm teaching a lesson or something, I'm working on a YouTube channel, and the title's going to be, what do tattoos and oracle cards have to do with each other? And the answer is absolutely nothing. But the reason why I start with that is actually how I started my spirituality practice and getting into angel cards. I was going for my first tattoo, excuse me, locally here. And when I walked in, it was a husband and wife that owned the store, and we've since become really good friends. But I didn't know her. I was really attracted to her energy, and she said to me, I have 2 sons, and they were a lot younger, and she said, you have 2 really special boys. And I said, well, all children are special. And she said, no, like there's something really unique about them. Do you mind if I do a little bit with my crystals around them? And I said, sure, why not? And I said, as long as they're okay with it. So she spent about 5 minutes. And then she looked up at me and she said, what do you do? And I said, well, what do you mean, what do I do? I said, I'm a nurse, but I said, other than that, I'm not quite sure. And she said, I'm picking up something unique about you as well. And she said, is there anything you're really drawn to? And I said, well, I've always kind of thought that angels are sort of cool. She said, hang on a minute. And she ran in the back, and I have the deck here, but I'll just use this one for example. She brought out this deck to me. She handed it. She said, take this home. I said, what is it? She said, you'll know. And I said, well, what do I do with it? She said, you'll know. And I said, well, when do you need it back? And for the third time, she said, you'll know. I brought it home, and I was hooked. And that's the beautiful thing about it. I had no knowledge, so that's why I'm teaching this with you. You don't have to have a certification or knowledge. Every single deck that I have encountered will have a book on the inside. It will give you interpretations of the cards. It will tell you how to clear your deck, which I'm going to go through with you. It will tell you how to set up your space. It will give you different kinds of what are called spreads, which means how to do a 1-card reading. You could do a reading for the week with 7 cards. I have seen decks that'll show you how to do a yearly forecast, and so on and so forth. Some of the decks that are tarot inspired, because with tarot I'm also trained in that, you'll get the major arcana and you'll get the minor arcana. So there's usually 72 cards in a tarot deck. With most oracle decks, I have found the numbers are usually a significant number, like 44, but not always. Some people a little more, a little less. So I always say go with what you're drawn to. If you want to find out more about it, take it home, because I can be really honest with you. With all the decks I have, there are very few that I have been disappointed in, or I've found something out about them that if they don't even resonate with me at that time, I kind of put them on a back shelf, and sure enough, there's always a reason why I bought them. The only deck I can think of that I'm not super crazy about, but I didn't know a lot about, and it's a beautiful deck, but I think it's geared more for people or for kids or needing some affirmation, so I don't use it so much in a reading deck. But it's a beautiful deck nonetheless. It's small, but this is when I didn't know much about buying decks. So this is for example, this is a really different type of deck, but this is one that I would use for something personal. Say something you wake up in the morning and you want to work on something. So once I get into the process, but I'll do it quickly now, but I'll explain it much more in depth. So you might shuffle the deck, or you can do this before you go to bed, this type of deck. And I'll just stick it here. I'm going to cut it in half. You don't have to. You can do whatever you feel like. If you want to take it from the top, whatever you like. So say I pulled out this card here. Archangel Uriel's on this one. So I might tuck this under my pillow at night, set the intention before I fall asleep, and what this card says with Archangel Uriel: a great spiritual transformation is currently occurring both in your life and in our world. This is the union of heaven and spirit, spirit and matter, heart and mind unite in harmonious balance. So I pulled this card because I knew I was pulling it for myself. I didn't know what I was going to pull. So if I leave this out, I could tuck this under my pillow before I go to bed tonight and silently say to Archangel Uriel, listen, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to meet with you in my dreams tonight, and I'd love you, if possible, to give me more clarification about what this message is about. So this is the only deck I don't use too often in my messages, just because there's not even a book with it. That's the only one that I have not found a book with. But this, I think, is more for personal use. So getting into, we've talked about how to pick a deck. I'm going to show you as well some different other kinds that I found that I love. I wanted to know more. There's certain people that ask questions. How do I ground and grid better? What do I need to know? And if I hear something from spirit in the way of they need to get more out in nature. This is a new one I have called the Wisdom sorry, I can't read it backwards. The Wisdom of Trees Oracle. This has got a lot of nature information in here. I've got others, like I said, I really enjoy crystals. This is another one about crystal grids you can set up for yourself, and there's also a message involved with this. So there are countless different kinds of decks. So this one tends to be a little bit more expensive deck, so keep that in mind too when you're buying cards. If you can, shop around a little bit. There are also, I will tell you, and I have them, and I've used them before, are apps. If I'm an iPhone girl, but I know that they're available for Android as well. And believe it or not, they're really, really accurate. And the reason why is, before I learned about angel cards, excuse me, and about trusting what you get from spirit, I have a very scientific, analytical type mind, working, like I say, as a nurse and studying as that. So what I used to do was, excuse me, is say I only had about 3 or 4 different decks, but instead of going out and buying a brand new deck, there were other apps that I wanted to know about, still with angels or what have you. I would ask myself a question. I would do an angel card reading, say with 1 card, read the message, and then I'd check it with another deck, and then I'd check it maybe with my 3rd deck, and even though they weren't the same cards, you will always get the same type of message from spirit. They would confirm that for me, and the same thing would happen with the apps when I would test it. So it's all about your intention and setting up how you want to get your answers, but spirit always comes through. They never fail to give you the answers you need. This is a new deck that I have, excuse me, and it's called the Magical Dimensions Oracle Cards and Activators. I was really drawn to the colors. This is a little bit more in-depth type of book, deck. On the back, there is more information, and what really drew me to this deck was it talked about awakening your intuition, working with not only the angelic realm, but the elemental and fairy realm, galactic realms. Excuse me. And I knew there was going to be a lot more involved with this particular deck because the size, for one thing, plus I knew there had to be a lot more involved with the messages because of the price. This one, Canadian, I think was almost $60, and that's not a normal price for angel card decks. You can usually get them fairly reasonable. So what I did find out when I opened up the box and reading within the book inside, that this special symbol in here, I'm going to teach you how to clear your deck when you pick it up from the store next. This symbol is activated, that it keeps my deck cleared for me. So I know if I'm doing readings and I trust this, that it's already set up for me. The other beautiful thing, just quickly about this deck, is it gives you I just opened a page, and it happened to be the one with the cover. So this has got the cover picture, so there's a card in here that matches this. It's called the Majestic Eminence. And who this person is called the Priestess, and she's divine, feminine, and worth. This one also gives a color ray with each card, so you can work with color. And it says this image is connected with the amethyst fleur-de-lis color ray. And the fleur-de-lis, for those of you who might not be aware, in Canada, I know it's a sign on the Quebec flag, but it's associated with France. It's kind of that scrolly sign, bunch of scrolls, and there's a little point down below. But the thing I love also, this not only gives you just a regular interpretation of the card, it gives you something called a celestial interpretation. So what I mean by the celestial interpretation is it kind of gives you a higher self, really sort of more spiritual type message, and then it gives you an oracle interpretation. So it gives you something really concrete that you can work with yourself or whoever you're giving the reading to, right within this earthly realm, rather than just working with spirit as well. Also will give you a companion crystal, and the ones they've suggested here are amethyst and auralite, and it also suggests a companion essential oil, which is lily of the valley. So that's why I really like this deck. Okay, enough about, I could get going on about this all night. Geez, now you know why I'm a junkie with cards. So the first thing you want to do, and I'll grab a smaller deck because that's probably something that you guys are going to be dealing with. So I'll grab this one just for an example too. Like I said, I could be up here all night. People have asked me, one of these days I will do this. I'm going to take some pictures. I had some updated, but I'm going to take some pictures and put them on my business page so people can get different ideas of what different decks I do have as well. I love animals. Found a cat deck recently. It works really well. It's still all what you get from spirit. The book will help you interpret it. It's great. But I don't know why I was drawn to grab this one. This is messages from your animal spirit guide. So I'm going to show you what we would do. So the first thing when you get your deck, you're going to open it up. Excuse me, I don't mean to be coughing like this. There's our book. We can set that aside. So you're going to take this deck of cards. You're going to place it in your non-writing hand. So I'm left-handed, so I'm going to place the deck in my right hand. And everybody does things a little differently. This is the way I do it. So if you find something else that works better for yourself, feel free to do so. This is just a starting place and how I was originally shown. So you're going to take your deck out, and the reason why you're going to do this is everything on this planet is energy. These have been sitting in a store somewhere, even from the place they were created, even in transit they've been handled. All different people might have picked up this deck. So these type of things tend to, anything does really, but your cards will pick up energy from other people. And the reason why we're doing this process is we want to imbue or settle in our energy into this deck because we're going to be the ones working with this deck and using it. So to clear it with your dominant or writing hand, as the deck is sitting in your non-writing hand, we're going to knock once, sweep it away, twice, sweep it away, 3 times, sweep it away. Now, the reason why I use 3, excuse me, I'm not coming out with a cold here, I apologize, is because for me, 3 is a really powerful number, as well as for myself, I find it very symbolic of and it doesn't matter if you have a religious belief or not. I was raised Roman Catholic. I believe in the Holy Trinity. You can pick whatever number works for you. We're knocking on it and sweeping it away because it not only gives myself the visual, and I feel it, I'm knocking some energy, but I'm also, in my mind, I'm visualizing, I'm sweeping up any extra energy that doesn't belong there, and I'm sweeping it away. Once we've done that, and I'll go through this fairly quickly, but you're going to go through each card and you're going to touch it. Make sure that they're separated. A lot of them, especially the ones that have a little bit of gold foil on the sides, they can stick together. So we would touch each card. Once that's done, I like to work with Archangel Michael, and I feel a lot of the decks I have found tend to work with Archangel Michael, especially if they're an oracle card deck. Some are called angel card decks, some are called just oracle card decks. And that's what I tend to use, because some people that hear angels, they tend to think that it's something really related just to God or very religious, whereas angels are actually found in every denomination of religion, culture, and history in the world. When you go back, they're non-denominational. They're just basically messengers of light and work with the divine, the higher source, universe, you want to call it, God, whatever you want to call your higher power. I choose Archangel Michael because he is the most powerful angel next to, and I'll just use the word God for easier choice of words, but whether you want to call it source. And he's also the patron saint of firefighters, police officers, and I will tell you, if you're ever somewhere and you need some protection or help, he is the first angel to call on. You can call in your mind if you're not, if you like, you can't say something out loud. Archangel Michael, I need your help. Please help me. He will show up and help you. He also protects your space for you. Not that we have anything to fear, but sometimes when we're doing this and we're just learning this, there are other lower vibrational energies depending on where you're doing your card readings and so on and so forth. So this is the way I've been taught, so I'm sharing it with you. We've touched our cards. Press it to where your heart would be. You don't have to say a prayer if that's something you don't use, but you just quietly are going to ask whomever your higher power is. So for example, I would say, this is just what I use. I say, Dear God, Archangel Michael, and I also say Jesus, Holy Mary, Mother of God, and Holy Spirit, because that's the way I've been raised. You do not have to use that. I'm just showing you what I do. And I say, all those that live in the light and love of God, please bless these cards, clear them, and please help me to be able to interpret these messages for those who I do these readings for, so that the messages that come through bless all those that are only coming through in love and for their highest good. And now your cards are set. It's pretty simple. If anybody has any questions, feel free to post them. Before I go any further, I will check though, just in case anybody does have any questions. All right. You like my shirt? Thank you, Christian. Yeah, I figured I usually dress up a little bit more, but as you can see, it's quite warm here. I turned off my air conditioner because it tends to make a bit of noise. So, okay guys, not time to get crazy. And my animals, I have kittens, they love Spirit, and so does my German Shepherd. I've got T'Challa behind me. So let me see. We got Elaine. Hello, Elaine. And Sheila. Yeah, we're going to get, after we're done this little lesson here, Sheila, then I will explain how I do readings, but we're definitely going to do readings tonight. Hi, Christy and Carla. Oh, you got a rock tumbler. Ooh, I got to hear more about that, Carla. Wow. Hi, Claudia. Linda. Hi, CJ. Katie, you went in to buy your first deck of Oracle cards a few months ago, but none of them called to me, so I ended up getting some tarot cards instead. Beautiful. Yeah, it doesn't have to be Oracle cards, whatever you feel drawn to. And let's see, we got Twinkle Bunso Estrella. Oh, that's an interesting name. Wow. You love my unicorn deck. Thank you. I love unicorns too. That's something we're going to talk about in a future lesson, is different realms of the metaphysicals that are available. I'm really into that as well. Thoughts about buying used decks? I like this question, Katie. There's nothing wrong with buying a used deck if it's something that you feel drawn to, as long as you clear the energy. Some other things you can use if you don't feel comfortable with the knocking technique I taught you. Sage works beautifully. There's Palo Santo, which is a really high vibrational sort of type of wood. Actually, I do have a stick of it. I bought some sticks because I have it in a tin. It's right here. And it's not burning as well. So I don't know if it's a little bit damp, even though it's been closed. And this is the Palo Santo because of the humidity that's been here, but it just looks like tobacco almost. It smells great. I usually burn it in my... I'll show you guys if I'm going to burn it. I usually burn it in my abalone shell. Just something I like to use. But this is what the sticks look like. They come from Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I used this one the other day. It's very slow burning, and you light it, and then you can just sort of blow on it. You can put things through the smoke. You can use these type of methods to clear anything energetically. So with the decks, obviously you don't want to light your deck on fire, but what you can do is once you've got, you know, your Palo Santo, and I stick just that piece of wood even in my abalone shell, and I use that just because it comes from nature, as well as, you know, it's not going to light on fire. And I sit it there. Once the smoke is up, you can pass the whole deck through the smoke if you like. But absolutely, there's nothing wrong with using a used deck. If that's something you feel called to and you clear it and you're imbuing it with your own energy, then that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I love that question that you asked. Okay, so I seen Chris Hoyles. What did you say? From personal experience, I cleansed it and haven't had any issues. Exactly. Thank you, Tanvi, about the decks. You were born right-handed, but your kindergarten teacher made you left hand. Which hand would you use? Good question. Whatever hand that you feel drawn to then. It doesn't matter. We don't have to get... I'm really specific with the steps here, but adapt this to whatever works for yourself. I love this question that you've asked, though, Carla. You were born right-handed, but forced to switch to your left. Which one feels better? Put the deck in your hand, and feel better in your left, or feel better in your right, and go from there. No problem. The main thing is, this is basically all about intention. And by having these processes, especially if this is something you're newer to, it kind of gives you kind of a place to sort of step into that world, if you call it that. It's a place to start. Once you start doing these things, you're going to find things that are going to work with you, things that aren't going to work with you, and that's okay. And I always say this when it has anything to do with spirit. Again, if you're coming from a place of love, and you're coming from the intention of it's either for your highest good or somebody else's, I truly believe you can't go wrong. And when you come up with an idea, I really believe we are connected to the higher power always through our higher self, or some people call it your subconscious. So when you come up with an idea, you're already connected to that beautiful divine intelligence. So if you've come up with the idea, more than likely you've created that with the higher source already. So you've probably already got your answer. But I love some of these questions. This is great. Hi, Lindsay. Hi, Cheryl. Aloha. Sounds like somebody from Florida, or not Florida, sorry, Hawaii. Hi, Paula. Excuse me. Thank you, Sherry. And again, you don't even have to use that prayer. Say you practice Wicca. You can still use these. It doesn't matter. So if you're praying to the goddess or you work with somebody else, that's okay. Or even if you don't have a belief in a higher power, but you work with the universe. Talk to the universe. Whatever works for you. Hi, Del. I didn't even know my partner was watching. That's nice. Tiffany, we got here. Oh, you said your little guy Nick watched, and he asked if he could get a reading too. Of course I would do that, Jody. You know I would. I don't have an age restriction for people, especially if somebody's got their parent with them and they're okay with it, of course. And if there is a child that, like I said, Jody, I don't know Nick, but I've met him once, and I know I have a son with autism, Justin, and I know, if I'm not mistaken, Nick also is under the spectrum. So if you've got a child that has a question they want answered, and you're okay, and you're their guardian, and you let me know, especially if they're a younger person, then I can kind of gear the language a little bit easier for them to understand. So I'm not using, big words, and I just do that with anybody so that I gear it to somebody's understanding. Let's see. Oh, we got some questions already here and nice things. Del is my common law partner. He just said, nice glasses. Where did you get them? I've had them for a couple of years. I actually lost them and found them recently. So no, Del, I wasn't out shopping. You missed the first part, Heather? No worries. You can always go back to the replay, so no big deal. You love your goddess deck. Oh, I love that, Anne. I completely forgot about it, and I have it right here. Selenite, which is a type of crystal, and I didn't really get into a lot of crystal explanation just because we haven't covered that. And some of you, this will be a repetition for you. Some of you are new here, so I'm sort of starting at the bottom with a psychic toolbox and building up to higher level concepts, if you will. But selenite is a high vibrational type of crystal. It never needs cleansing. It's very connected to the angelic realm. And it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, you can use crystals to clear your deck if you like. You can use moonlight if you want. We can get into all kinds of things like that. I was trying to make it very simple, but I love that you brought that up. Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Helen. Oh, what's the best way to use 2 to 3 decks at a time? I got to answer that for Anchel. Is it okay to use 2 or 3 or more decks at a time? Absolutely. And there's people I know that do that. So I didn't even get into this, but I have something. So we're getting a little bit off topic here, but I'm going to show you. I have something called an angel deck or angel board. And say we've got a question here where we wouldn't have the time tonight. This is usually something I do in a one-on-one reading, a paid reading. But you need some really specific answers. And this is something I will show you guys in the future when we're doing a bit of an education session before readings. But this is something that's really designed to work with multiple decks, or if we're not getting an answer from the cards that we've pulled. Like, for example, it's like a wheel. It's really big, that's why I'm not pulling it out, but it's like a wheel and with spokes. And every spoke is governed by a different archangel. And for example, there's actually one spoke that says yes or no. I think there are 12 different versions of what yes and no is. It could be definitely, it might be maybe. It gives you time frames and so on and so forth. So that's another tool. But with multiple decks, if that's something you want to use and you so feel drawn to that, go with your intuition. If you feel you need 2 to 3 decks, and I have done that in readings recently where I've used multiple decks. I don't mix them up, excuse me, but if you want to shuffle them all together and you can hold them in your hands and there's no problem. I have a little bit of arthritis, so that's why I don't always use my tarot decks even when I'm doing card readings like this, because it's really hard for me to hang on because there's 72 cards. So that's why I tend to stick with the smaller decks. But absolutely, if that's something you want to use and it'll give you more insight, and if you want to mix them all together, that works. Or sometimes when I use a multiple deck reading, I will shuffle one deck, shuffle another, and then just pick accordingly, back and forth, whatever you feel drawn to. I like that question though, so thank you. Oh, Sherry, you're in Florida. And I said Florida by accident. I should have stuck with that, right? Twinkle, you're from the Philippines. Welcome. I'm seeing something here I missed, I guess. Sorry, somebody was talking about, yes, he is. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, so, oh, we got another person here with an adult with autism. He wanted to ask me if he should continue. Okay, that's something we can certainly answer when we're almost done here, guys, and we'll get into the big part of our night that everybody shows up for, and I understand for the readings. You're attracted to those cards. Wonderful. Okay, probably got about another 2 minutes. So what we've done is we've talked about how to get our cards, where you can find them, how to clear your cards. You guys have asked some fantastic questions, and I love it. Then we've talked about how you imbue it with your energy, which means you're going to touch each card after you've cleared it, spread it into a fan, hold it over your heart. And even if you don't believe in a higher power, I said you can work with the universe about that. You know, these readings that you're going to be doing, that energy comes through for a higher power, or even if you just want to use love. So it's whatever works for you. So with one card, and the reason why I might use one card, I usually do that for, you know, for time tonight, just to give you guys quick question or quick answers. But you, like I said, for those of you that joined a little bit later, there are you can do things like, they're called Celtic crosses. And usually the books will explain why you might use that spread. You could pick 12 cards and set the intention that each month give you a yearly forecast. You could pick 7. You could, a lot of times when I'm working with a new deck, and some of my friends, my best friend in particular, she's got a new deck, we'll work together, and I'll just ask them. I'll say to her, how many cards do you want? And she'll tell me. She might say 6, she might say 7. Another good friend of mine, Christian, we do that sometimes. So it's whatever you feel drawn to, but we just stick with usually one card. The other thing I do want to point out is, so how we're going to get, once we've got our deck, you know, you've got it cleared, you've done your basically connecting with it and asking for the messages to come through for how I just explained, you're going to shuffle your deck. You're going to shuffle it well. You'll see people doing it differently. Some people just keep shuffling until a card falls out. I shuffle until I hear in my head, I'll hear stop. Some people may see a light. You just stop whenever you get any sign or you just feel like it's time to stop. Now, the one thing that you'll see sometimes is people say, uh-oh, there's your card right there. And as we're shuffling, a card pops out. That's what I would call a jumper, or you hear some people calling it that. That's usually a pretty clear sign, if it pops out or jumps out from the deck, that that's definitely meant for the person that you're reading for. So I might be shuffling, and then I just heard stop in my head. As we're shuffling too, when you're first doing this, it's a really good thing to think about the question that somebody's asked you. I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm okay with talking because I can keep it in my head while I'm doing it. But in the beginning, so focusing on the question. So for example, and I'll do a reading right now, so let me see. I'm going to ask, this is really simple. Please tell me who my animal totem is. I'm working with an animal totem deck. It doesn't have to be that. It could be anything. I could be asking, am I going to move in the next 6 months? Either way, they're always relevant, the answers that come through, regardless of the deck. So for me, I like to cut the deck. You don't have to. You can take the cards off the top of the deck. So I've gotten that the honeybees come through. And the message below, there's usually a message, and I will share this with you. It says, let compassion and forgiveness be your top priority in this situation. So there's my card. If I was going to interpret it, usually what I do, if I'm not talking, if I was doing this by myself or somebody else, or you're doing it, I would look at this card, take a look at it, just say what you got. Do you notice any special colors? Do you notice a smell maybe? Maybe it could be flowers, it could be honey, you might smell. I'm just giving you examples. Colors, there's a lot of colors. There's green, there's gold, there's some aqua, there's some deep blue, there's a little bit of yellow, and so on and so forth. So as I might be looking at these colors, I might be thinking anything coming to mind as I'm noticing that. Anything come to mind and I think of honeybees. I might hear their buzzing. You might hear anything. So you're going to be using all of your five senses. And whatever comes through, share it. If you're not sure what it means, you can ask Spirit to work with you and help you understand it better. And then, or in the sake of time, if you're going to be doing this one day, you can use the book. There's nothing wrong with it. And I like to use the book. Sometimes I will give you guys just the interpretation of what I get from Spirit. Sometimes I like to go to the book. And the reason why I use the book too is because I always believe two heads are better than one. So they may have had a completely different interpretation of the card. So usually when I'm reading a card, I borrow this from Crystal Ann Compton. I've taken a lot of her courses. And I love when she said this before, which is take what resonates with you and leave the rest. So all this message may not be meant for you. Lastly, the other part I do want to cover is, say you're doing your shuffling and you pull a card and the card has nothing to do with the question that somebody has asked you, or even that you've asked. There's usually two things I found. One is, and I usually trust that this is what this means, and it doesn't happen very often, is that this is a message that Spirit, when I say Spirit, I mean your angels, your guides, your entire spiritual team. This is a message that they feel that is very important for you, if you're doing it for yourself, or for the person that you're reading for, that they need to hear. If it doesn't resonate with them in any way, shape, or form either, and it just seems really wonky, like it's like, where did this come from? Maybe that's a sign too that you need to re-clear your deck. The other question that I get a lot of times is, people will say, if I'm doing a reading for someone else, should I let them touch my deck? You've imbued this deck with your energy. So I always say to people, for myself, I prefer to do it. I know that my deck remains clear that way because I don't clean it every time I do a reading for somebody. I trust I've got that connection with Spirit. It's kept in its box and in a special place and nobody else touches it. But if you're okay with that and you want people to cut the deck, that's okay too. It's whatever works for you and how you feel comfortable with it. Lastly, if you were going to be doing a one-card reading for yourself, again, it was kind of what we talked about in the beginning. You can set the intention of shuffling, asking, say, before bed, is there something that maybe I need to work on before I go to bed that'll set the stage for the next day? Pull out a card and you can stick that underneath your pillow at night. Or some people prefer to do it in the morning. Pull out a card in the morning and you may find, I'll just say, for example, with the honeybee, is talking about peace and harmony, if I'm not mistaken. So that may be something that's going to be a prevalent thing to work on during the day. Like I said, the opportunities and things that you want to cover with these cards are endless. They are just a tool to help you better interpret messages from Spirit. So in closing, before we get to readings, I've shown you how to pick a deck, where to go get a deck, how to clear it. Some people brought up some great ideas, other alternative ways we could do this. And basically how you shuffle your deck, how you get your answers, and different things that you might be using these decks for. So I hope that helps you guys. If you find that you have any further questions, please feel free to post them in the comments below.